When I first started working in the music industry, I was 21 years old. I just moved to London from Leeds. I was working in the A&R department at a major music company. I was very sociable, very fun. There was a lot of alcohol. I went to gigs every night. It was like my dream come true job.
Being signed at 16, I was just fresh out of school, so I didn't really have a lot of experience in the music industry, and it's sort of just like a whirlwind. I remember the day that I got my GCSE results was like the same day that I was going off to meetings and like meeting big label people and, up in London.
So I've always been making music and writing songs since very young. And when I was about 13, I started putting them online. And when I was 15, somebody emailed me from one of the really big music companies in the UK, and he said that he wanted to help me, he wanted to work with me.
I got a job in a recording studio making the tea, and it was the most fantastic job ever. I loved it. I worked really, really hard. I worked with amazing people who were just all men that just looked after me and treated me like a younger sister. And I had a great time there for a couple of years. But I was had a bit more ambition than that. I wanted to run EMI Records worldwide one day. And lo and behold, I got offered an incredible job abroad.
Did you have negative experiences? Can you talk me through one of them?
When I was about 23 years old, I went to a gig like I did every night. I went with a few friends from work. We met the manager of a couple of artists that we were trying to sign. He started plying me with drinks and buying me shots. We ended up drinking quite a lot and then going back to mine to continue the night. He fell asleep on the sofa and I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night and he'd got into bed with me and his fingers were inside me. He'd lit all the candles in my room. He acted like it wasn't a big deal, but he did stop. But I didn't know how long he'd been doing it before I woke up. He went back to sleep on the sofa and in the morning he was gone.
How did you feel in that moment when you woke up and you knew what was happening? That must have been hugely traumatic.
It was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. I felt truly violated. So I went to work and I very quietly told people. I was encouraged to keep quiet on the matter because it would hurt our chances of signing his artist. He actually got away with assault.
By the age of 16, Amy had started working with a manager from one of the UK's largest music companies and quickly became a successful artist. We've changed her name to protect her identity.
For the first few years when we worked together were actually really good. My music was getting attention from labels for the first time, and we had chart success with my first release. And we were quite a good team until everything went wrong.
What went wrong?
Well, he told me that he was in love with me and that if I didn't agree to be his girlfriend, then he would ruin my career. I was 17 at this point, and he was quite a few years older than me, so I went along with it, and over the next 2 years he continued to blackmail me and threaten me to be in a relationship.
For Chloe, success also came at a young age. By 16, she'd been signed to a major record label and soon after was nominated for a Brit Award.
So there was a guy that I was working with within the industry. We were working quite closely together and I was a teenager. Slowly as time went on, he would sort of encourage me into doing things that I had never really done before, drugs. I had no experience in whatsoever.
They kept her prisoner growing up.
There were times when he would sort of, drop me off at my hotel, and then he would text me and be like, why didn't you invite me in and stuff? And I would be like, oh God, am I meant to invite this person in that I'm working with? And then I would sort of feel like almost pressured to flirt back with him or like to sort of not make it seem weird, because I didn't want to disappoint this guy who I thought held my career in his hands. He started sending me texts one night completely out of the blue, telling me that he was madly in love with me, that if he wasn't working with me, he would be totally cracking onto me. And I was 18. I remember one night he grabbed my bum and said something along the lines of, "I feel like we would have a really good time in the sack." And I was a teenager, I was off my face. I haven't come forward and spoken about it because I know that people would have said, "Yeah, but you were off your face, you know, you are a flirt," or whatever it is. And it did make me very uncomfortable because, and sort of ashamed in a way, because I would feel like, am I leading this guy on? Am I letting this happen? Am I meant to be letting it happen?
So what did your relationship look like?
Being in the relationship was pretty horrible because I had to continuously act as though the feelings were mutual, because if he saw any signs that they weren't mutual, then he would get very angry. He made a list of all the things that I was and wasn't allowed to do, and it had things like showing him more affection, talking to my friends and family less, and making sure that he was the person I talked to most of my life. He convinced me that he was the only reason I was having any success, and that if I told anybody, that success would go away and no one would want to work with me without him in the picture.
In her 20s, Michelle got her break and landed a job abroad working for a big music company. But when she arrived, she was told her work permit hadn't come through and she'd have to stay with an older, more senior colleague.
I hadn't been there more than a few days when small things happened. He would walk into my room in the mornings with no clothes on. And then one night he came into the room and said that he wanted to sleep with me. I mean, I was a young girl and I really didn't know how to handle this kind of thing because I'd never come across this before. He would masturbate in front of me. He would masturbate on me and say, "I know you really like it."
You must have been terrified.
Yeah, I was. Oh, I felt ashamed, actually. I felt really ashamed. I felt like a sex slave, actually. That's the best way to describe it. I found out, actually, who the immigration people were I needed to speak to, and I rang them up, and they said that they'd had my immigration papers ready for several months. And I got myself an apartment and I continued working at the company for several months. And one day I was with a girl in the office and we were told, could we go and see him after work? So we went up to his office and then he turned around to us both, took out his penis and said, "I want to have a threesome with you. Come on girls, let's do it." We went to a lawyer and we were categorically told that he had committed a serious crime. But the lawyer said, if you report this, you will never work in the industry again. So we went for a coffee, we handed in our notice and never went back to the office again.
What's happened to this man? Where is he in the industry now?
He's still in it, and I do know for a fact that he's had other allegations against him.
Being a musician is all I ever wanted for my whole life, and it was finally happening. It should have been the best time of my life, but it was actually the worst time of my life.
By now, Amy says her manager had started to sexually assault her.
I didn't want to survive anymore because it was just a horrible life. I thought, I'm going to get a 9-to-5 job and I'll be banned from the music industry. But I'd rather be banished from doing what I love than have to spend any more time with this man.
Looking back, do you think that he groomed you?
Yeah, I do think he groomed me. I was 15 when we met and he was looking online for a girl to manage. It does worry me that he's still working and that this might happen to somebody else. From afar I check up on him to make sure he's not managing any other young girls, and at the moment he isn't.
Inspired by the allegations against Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement, Yasmin put out a call asking women to share their experiences of sexual misconduct in the music industry.
I expected stories of sexual harassment. Oh, he wouldn't stop looking at my boobs, or I got unwanted compliments from him all the time. But what I've actually received are stories of rape, insisting on receiving blowjobs, seriously assaulting women, chasing them down the street, raping them in apartments owned by major music companies.
I thought, I'm going to do this because I'm going to write Me Too. I mean, it was a big thing for me to do. And then I woke up in the morning and my Facebook feed was full of almost every other woman I know in the music industry also saying Me Too.
How widespread do you think this sort of abuse is in the music industry?
I think probably more than we'll ever know, because people like myself are always going to be too scared to come forward. And I think that's what we need to change as an industry and as a society.
Sexual assault and abuse in the music industry is endemic. I don't have a single peer in the music industry who's never been sexually harassed or assaulted.
I know girls who've been raped, and it's always a man in power and a girl on the rise who needs as much support as possible, whose career hasn't started yet, and who maybe this is her first big shot. I know that I'm very lucky to have the experiences that I've had. Not, they haven't gone any further.
That sounds mad.
What do you mean?
To say you're lucky,
but it
and
has
yet
happened.
have the stories that you've had.
Yeah, it's gross that I think what's happened to me is an easy ride. It's actually, it is sick that I think that what's happened to me is one of the good stories. It should be nothing at all.
Michelle has gone on to have a successful career in music and is now working in the film industry.
Why have you decided to finally speak about what's happened to you?
Because I never wanted it to happen to anybody again. I thought I was a hangover of the 80s, 90s. I thought that sort of behaviour was no longer in the business, but it's very clear that that behaviour is still going on, and young women are being sexually assaulted still today. There are some very dangerous men in this business.
Right at the top?
Yep.
Currently?
Yep.
I have absolutely no doubt that there are people working in the music industry today who should not be working in the music industry. I have no doubt that there are people working in the music industry today who should be in prison. I have absolutely no doubt that they think that they're safe, that they think that they're untouchable. Maybe some of the horrific things they did were a long time ago. They've probably forgotten about them, but I can assure you that their victims haven't. A lot of people have come to me and said, don't stick your neck out on this. This could affect your chances of getting work in the future. But if this is the hill I die on, so be it. I am angry and things need to change.